Hello, podcast listener. This is your host with the most. Tucker and I are going to cover a lot of ground today. We're going to talk about the things that you want to do when you've got vacation built up. We're going to talk about how a company should value you. We're going to talk about superhero movies, how much CGI there is. By the way, JJ Meets World, 0 CGI. We are all about physical effects and promoting those industries and unions. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
JJ, do you remember your dreams from like last night?
Yeah, I do remember one of them, actually only because a person I haven't seen in a very long time showed up in the dream. I can't remember the premise, what was going on. And it's rarer for me as I get older to remember what happened in my dreams.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay. I go from like in and out of, wow, I'm having a lot of dreams lately that are very vivid and I remember them. And then spans of time where I'm sure I dream, but I just don't retain it. I don't even think about it in the morning. So I'm in a mode right now where every night I'm having like these vivid, long dreams. And a recurring theme for me over the years in my dreams when I'm having vivid ones is they almost always take place in or around some kind of large, ancient mansion.
Oh.
And it's always a different shape and size and stuff. And the mansion itself is never the story or the thing that's going on. It just happens to be where it's taking place. That's always been a recurring theme in my really vivid dreams. And I don't know why that is. So last night I had one of those. Giant mansion. This was a mansion that was so big, every room was the size of a ballroom. Okay. So and they were sort of equal in size and sort of laid out on a grid, almost like you were at a hotel, but it was a mansion. It was kind of Victorian in its styling, but didn't have any furniture because there was this large performance art thing going on there. And it was a thing that went on throughout the day. And there were hundreds of people there to see it. And you could kind of move in and out of each room at will whenever you wanted to. And there was a schedule for when you would know they would have food available. And like the food was always a brilliant, like delicious spread. Every time I'd go into a different room where like, oh, there's an a cappella group singing on stage and they're doing this thing, or there's gymnastics going in here, or there's an improv scene going on here. But it was always kind of weird. Some things had audience participation, other things didn't. There were rules sometimes. And a lot of people I knew were there. I'd run into them. And I ran into Jake Hartje in one room. We're like, hey, man, how's it going? Chatted for a little bit and then went our separate ways to go enjoy other parts of this thing. Later on, I'm outside hanging, talking to some people, and someone comes out and they go, did you hear that Jake Hartje got kicked out of the performance? And I said, really? Why? And they said, well, apparently he mooned a group of people and then spread his cheeks apart so they could see his butthole.
Okay.
And then I woke up.
I mean, that's a very vivid. Here's the thing. Like, number one, that was kind of like his personality at one point. Like, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But like Jake Hartje of today would definitely not.
He wouldn't do that. Jake Hartje of yesteryear would, but I don't know.
Do you know the first time Jake ever came over to my house, I was downstairs in my bathroom taking a shower, and my parents let him in, and he had never been in my house. And I had only made friends with Jake maybe 2 weeks earlier at school, like my sophomore year of high school. And the next thing I know, the shower door is opening and Jake's fully naked. And he goes, let's suds up. And I start laughing, and he closes the door and he goes, hey, there's a bag of paydays out here for you. And he had, because it was near my birthday. And so he brought me a bag of paydays. And so I came out and he was dressed and he was sitting there laughing. And I was like, yeah, I mean, you are the most unique individual I've ever met in my life.
No question about that. I first met Jake at the camp out for the X-Men movie. Mm-hmm. So he was dressed as the ravishing redneck. For that. So that was my first Jake Hartje experience, and we became good friends after that. And the rest, as they say, is history.
So why do you think the Jake made an appearance in one of your mansion dreams? By the way, the mansion you're describing reminds me of the Palace of Versailles.
Oh,
and because when I toured that, every room was like a giant ballroom, like you said, right? Tall ceilings, long, and you walk through each, and you're like, I can't imagine a time when there's a lot of stuff. Now, were there a lot of other people there?
Yeah, that I knew, theater people, and then people from my high school. And so I think a couple things are at play there. One, my 20th reunion is coming up in September. I just got the email with all like the plans for what's going to be happening. So that was fresh in my mind. So I ran into a lot of people that I haven't seen for years in that dream. And I remember one of them, who was it? I forget. I think it was one of the Chelseas, was on stage with a microphone and then made eye contact with me. And she was like, is that thing going to be on Thursday? And I was like, are you talking about the reunion? Probably on Saturday, something like that. I remember another part was they gave everyone pillows and said, okay, everyone, you pick one person in the room to hit as hard as you can. And you have to get hit as hard as you can once. And me and Mikey Ward started looking for Mike Rezel. And we were like, Rezel! We couldn't find the guy. The three consistent things about these mansions is they're always in the woods. They are always ancient. They feel ancient. They kind of look ancient, but they feel even older. And it's a mansion, but it's a different shape and style and size of mansion. One time it was smaller rooms and I walked through it. This was a different dream and it was people in old, like general military garb hanging around and stuff. There's all sorts of variations for it. And I don't know why I kind of generate a structure like that for these really vivid dreams where I'm like going down the depths of my brain, as you say. Jake and I recently just connected on BattleNet and Steam because like my entertainment these days is playing PC games. I use a streaming service that's like $30 a month, so I don't have to go buy a PC. It works just like
you said it's great.
I love it. And he could see that I was active in some games that he has. So we just chatted a little bit and like we were making plans to play together at some point. So I think that's why he was in my head.
One of the first things I ever did with Jake, that same night that he stepped into the shower with me, he asked me if I had ever played StarCraft before. And I said I hadn't, but I knew it was a thing. I'm used to a game controller. Like you put me in front of a Super Nintendo with Turtles in Time, I gotcha.
Yeah.
GoldenEye on 64, no sweat. Grand Theft Auto 2 on the PS2, I got it, right? So I'm a controller type guy. But I watched these guys who, I'm using a mouse to like click, add resources, like things like that. And they know all the hotkeys. So like they're moving at a million miles faster than I am.
Yep.
And because I didn't get into that early enough, I've always lagged behind. So I never gave time to like the Diablo series, right? Or, StarCraft until Jake introduced me to it. And he goes, we're going to go sneak into the NDSU computer lab because they have a T1 internet connection and no lag. And so at this time, everyone had dial-up internet, so you could be playing. Like StarCraft is great because, and if you've never played StarCraft, here's a general idea for you. There are 3 different alien races warring against each other. One are human beings who are trying to colonize other planets. One is the Zerg, and they're kind of the most unevolved group, so they're like bugs and stuff like that. And Protoss are the other ones, and there's like a more evolved alien race that you're going after. And so you do things like you have to mine minerals and chemicals, and you use those to build warships, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's a resource game, I believe is like, isn't that the term for it? Like resource management.
I mean, that's in it. I think it's considered a strategy game.
Sure,
maybe,
yeah.
but I think there's a lot of words that apply to it. I'm not quite sure where it stands these days because the terms have been evolving over time.
Right. And like the one I got into the most where you had to do stuff like that is Age of Empires. I played the hell out of Age of Empires. So the fact was this was a game that you could play against other people. So someone would play the Zerg, you would play, the Terras or Earthbound folks, and you'd war against them, and it would be in real time. But because of dial-up internet, it would lag sometimes. So your computer would be working and doing these things. But if you had an alarm system set, or if there's something that you had that would alert you to your other opponents, it might not update as fast because it's going over the internet. So his thing was he would sneak into NDSU, use the computer lab, and you could only go and sneak in after midnight until like 4 o'clock in the morning because it's the time when there's the least amount of people. Your chance of getting caught is slim to nil. This is also at a time when you had to take your game disc with you to put it into the CD-ROM at the computer station you're at. So we sneak into NDSU with 4 other people. I think it's the first night I ever hung out with Ryan Maloney and Pat Marsden. And there was just like a group of people who all knew what they were doing, right?
Yep.
So they were all the hotkeys kids.
Were any of them students to get access?
No
one was.
We
a
were
student.
all high school students, all Fargo South high school students. And how do I even know that they had this as an option? I can't even tell you.
Right.
So we go in there and they tell me when you walk into the library, don't go straight to the computer lab. Walk in, go around a stack of books and work your way around to it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, and he goes, don't like, I'm going to walk in and then you wait 2 minutes and then you walk in and you guys are going to go through the east door.
I guess there's probably no camera systems really in place at that moment.
It's a security guard.
Yeah.
It is man versus man at this point. So we sneak in and we sit down, and I don't have a StarCraft disc, but Jake lends me an alternative disc that he's come by over the years, right? So he's got a backup disc. And so I pop it in, and they are already off to the races, and I'm like, create account, and I'm doing all of these little things. And what's amazing to me is, you put a disc in and had to load some of that information onto the computer, but it is playing off the CD-ROM at the same time. So we're playing, and the thing that really gives you away, because there's other people in there playing other games.
Right.
NDSU students are allowed to be in there, and you didn't have to put in a student ID. You literally just turned the screen on and Windows was there.
Yep.
There's no verification at all, no authentication.
The good old days.
Oh God, I kind of miss them.
Windows 95? 98?
I think when did
probably 90.
When did XP come out?
I'm not sure. Maybe year 2000 or something.
So
2001.
it was probably, that's probably one of the reasons we went, is it probably had XP.
Okay.
Because colleges have a lot of money, so they upgrade their technology all the time.
They did have a lot of money.
You also had to bring your own speakers if you wanted sound. And there's no headphone jack. You had to bring speakers.
Oh, wow.
So whatever computers NDSU purchased didn't have a headphone jack, but so a couple of them did bring, and then you need to play it really low.
They're probably dropping $5,000 per computer for that
right?
shit.
There's also I think Ryan's had a headphone jack in the speaker, so he hooked the speakers in. This is also at the era too where your mouse and keyboard don't plug into a USB port.
Right.
It's got a mouse port and it's got a keyboard port.
Right.
So
Yep.
a couple of them also brought their own keyboards. They had the ones that were, slightly angled, and so like it's better ergonomically, I guess, for you. Like, or if you're chubby, it's better. I don't know what it is. So we're playing there, and what gets you caught is how animated you are during the game. And so one of them went like, God damn it, really loud. And it's 2 o'clock in the morning in a library at NDSU. And so people like turn around and look over, and it caught the attention of the person at the information desk. And so they came over and they just kind of looked. They didn't ask any questions. They kind of looked. And then about 10 minutes later, here comes the night security guard. And so Jake sees the night security guard over his monitor, so you can only see his eyes, right? And Jake goes, take the disc out walk out right now. And I'm like, I'm in the middle of the game. He goes, take the disc out, walk out right now. And so I take the disc out and I start walking away, and the guy tries to stop me, but I just keep going, right? And before I know it, like 2 of the other ones. And so Jake was the only one there who was still playing StarCraft. And the guy said, oh, I need to see your student ID. And Jake goes, oh, I don't have it. And he goes, oh, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the computer lab. And Jake goes, okay. And so Jake gets up and he follows us, and they're like, what happened? He goes, he didn't recognize me from last time. And that must have been the big coup, was that he wasn't recognized, because I imagine at one point there was a list of names and maybe some photographs. I don't know if they had a Polaroid handy.
Didn't recognize me from last time.
And I said, how often do you guys do this? And they're like, every weekend. Every weekend we do this. And so
Jake is like sort of the personification of like the happy hobo. Like the guy who's got like a toe sticking out of his sock, and he's got a bindle walking around, and a piece of wheat in his mouth, and he's just trucking
he's always whistling.
Well, he goes, you had mentioned Turtles in Time. So when you play Turtles in Time, who's your go-to turtle to play?
Oh, I'm always Donatello.
Same.
I feel like Donatello is my man.
Same. Every time I play a Turtles game, the first character I play as is Donatello. And that's because when I played that initial Nintendo game, his weapon had the greatest reach. And so you could beat Rocksteady by just standing on top of those boxes and just keep hitting down and not get hit. And ever since then, I've been biased towards using Donatello. I was Donatello for Halloween in the first grade. So
this is the one your grandma made, right?
Yeah. So like I'm pretty much always doing Donatello no matter what.
What turtle do you identify with the most, though?
It changes throughout the years. It's a different time. I mean, right now there isn't one specific one I identify with. I think the one I identify with the least at the moment is probably Michelangelo. Yeah. Which is why he's my favorite at the moment, because I get such a kick out of him.
He represents what you aren't right now, right?
Exactly.
We are in a very similar age gap where we're adulting more than we're party guying, right? And so I feel like there's a natural progression where you move out of your you move out of your Michelangelo years into either Raphael or Donatello, like struggling to figure out how to lead yourself forward. But ultimately you want to be Donatello, because I feel like Donatello represents the retired, the taking time for yourself, enjoying your hobbies.
Can you imagine, our grandfathers fighting World War II in their early 20s and hearing us talking about adulting in our late 30s? Be like, really?
Yeah.
This is our legacy right here.
Your privilege is showing, gentlemen. Like,
I got shot at by 5 different Germans today. I killed all of them.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was just talking to a friend of mine who's much younger, right? So this was a student who graduated, and I see him out every now and then, and so we chat, and I said, how are things going? He goes, oh, it's really great, but I'm working with this improv club, and I'm having a lot of struggles with it right now. And I said, well, tell me what those struggles are. He goes, well, no one can make it to rehearsal at the same time. And so we have this kind of rolling rehearsal that starts at 7 and goes until 10. And sometimes people show up and they go, and I said, if they want to be there, they'll make the time to be there. And he goes, well, yeah, but we don't want to be abrasive about it. And I was like, oh, you're going to have a tough time when it gets to the real world, because people set schedules and like, do you hope a plane sticks around for you? Like I at one point, I think you have to acknowledge that the best time of your life is when time didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, have you ever heard the adage of you measure your life in 3 things, which is time, health, and money, right?
Yeah, that's true.
There's never a time when all 3 of those things are peaked for you, because when you're young, you've got the most time, the most health, but the most limited amount of money that you're going to have. When you retire, you have the most time and the most money, but the least amount of health that you most likely are ever going to have. And so it never balances out for you in it. And so I think people have a lot of pride in how many vacation days they have built up And I always think,
use those suckers.
right.
Use that shit.
Right.
What are you doing?
My company does a deal where at the end of the year, they allow you to carry over 80 hours, right? So 2 full business weeks of vacation you can carry over. And I'm
Wow.
like, that's pretty awesome, right?
How many times can you do that?
Every year. But if you have above 80 hours, you don't get paid out for it. It bucks down. So let's say you've got 105 hours on December 31st. As soon as midnight hits, you've lost 25 hours of vacation days.
Got it. So even if you didn't use any vacation this year or the next year, so you would have 160, quote unquote. Nope, you're only going to have 80 again. By the time. Okay, got it. I was like, that sounds like you could really take a year off after a few years and get paid for it.
And they used to have it where you just get to carry over whatever you had going over. And the amount of sick leave is ridiculous. You can have like 200 hours of sick leave that carries over.
Nice.
And recently they changed their company policy where they said, you're going to get 10 sick days and 10 vacation days a year.
Mm-hmm.
And now what they're saying is you get 5 vacation days or 5 sick days, but 15 vacation days a year.
Right.
And I think that it's great because it forces people to actually use their vacation, because I know people who just bulk it up and bulk it up and bulk it up. And are like, it's never going to be rainier than it is right now.
Right.
You fill your cup and then go and empty it out and sit on a beach or stay at your home and catch up on Frasier. Right. I don't care what you do, but use that vacation time. And I know a lot of companies are really worried because during the pandemic, nobody used vacation because there's no point in it, right?
Yep.
Maybe they zeroed out sick days because they got COVID, but imagine the looming debt that really is, right?
Yep.
So it's something your employees have. It's probably, no joke, in the trillions of dollars, the amount of vacation days that people have saved up right now that companies technically owe or have to pay out. Your dad made the active choice to retire because they were going to change their vacation policy. And so if you didn't retire by the end of the year he did, you were going to be limited to the number of sick and vacation days you had, and they were going to cut it down to what the new max was. And so he was going to lose what was equivalent to like a year's worth of salary.
Yeah. No, he had to get out. Now that I'm in the job market again, as I'm looking at places, I'm starting to see this is how a lot of different people are doing this now. And it's kind of interesting to see this company does XYZ, this company does XYZ. And I'm now weighing that more than ever, along with salary and other benefits and stuff like that. But yeah, it's kind of nuts. The last job I had, there was none. You just would go, hey, I want to take a vacation, and they would grant it to you. And I only took one, and that was to go visit Brianna for about 5 days in Arkansas.
Yeah.
That was the only one I ever took. That's
the only time you ever took off?
There was, at the very end of the year, holiday stuff. And the thing was that the way with that job, there were slow periods and there were busy periods. So when I had the slow periods, it almost felt like I was on vacation sometimes. I was so not busy that it was I can kind of do my own thing. And so I felt guilty about ever even asking to take some vacation time off. Other members of the company would do it all the time. And I only really did it once. Maybe I did it a second time that I can't really remember.
Certainly not long enough that it made an impact.
No. So when I was really busy and I was just balls to the wall busy all the time, I'd be like, I really got to find some time to take a break. And then things would slow down and I'd feel guilty about it, so I wouldn't do it.
So you and I both worked in industries that had we've got super busy times and we've got times that are a little more laissez-faire. Mm-hmm. And I wish that we could look at a person every 6 months, and track hours for a 6 month time, because to me, there are times for example, this last week, we had a massive company event in our parking lot. We celebrated 75 years of broadcasting.
I was going to come get some food. Damn it.
I've got some in the fridge.
Oh, yay.
Don't worry. We'll get you hooked up. But so we grilled 1,600 burgers. Ooh. And we figure there was probably somewhere between 1,500 and 15,500 here in the parking lot in 2 hours. Wow. I dare say McDonald's doesn't even hit that ratio.
Right, but they sell their burgers.
Right, they do. These were free. These were 100% free. And we had people from...
And these burgers are probably way better than McDonald's burgers because these were hot and fresh off the grill.
Here's the thing. So we got them from Prime Cut Meats on South University, and people complimented the burgers this year, and I said it's a twofold thing. Prime Cut Meats does the best with their burger because they grind the muscle themselves, and they do what's called a fine grind versus a coarse grind. So most of the stuff you see in grocery stores is a coarse ground burger, which is why the fat content you see is always 85, 80 or 90, right? So, and it's because the amount of fat that goes into these things, blah, 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 blah. But theirs varies a lot based on the muscle that they're grinding up, right? Like what percentage of this? It might be 76, it might be 91. And so that's one of the, and it cooks differently then.
I would assume so.
Oh God.
Cooks
it is
more
so good.
evenly, I would assume.
More evenly, and like it's less greasy in the part that doesn't matter. Like you want a little bit of like flavor lake is what I like to call on top of a burger, but you don't want it to be something that feels like fatty.
Did they come in frozen patties or were they fresh?
They're all fresh.
Ooh.
All fresh. And like because of the fine ground nature, the grease drips a lot. Like it drains itself, and so you can't cook these things over a direct flame or you're going to get flare-ups.
Yep, that makes sense.
So that's one reason these burgers were so good. Number two, finally, they used the Weber gourmet burger seasoning that I've been talking about for years. They said, JJ, this is so expensive. And I go, I know, but it's worth it. It is so good. And I got turned on to this during the pandemic when I interviewed a guy named Kevin Coleman, who's the head grill master for Weber Grills.
Okay.
We had him on the show, and he and I got this instant friendship going immediately. And he's like, have you ever tried our restaurant? And I'm like, I got engaged in one of your restaurants, bro.
Weber has restaurants?
Yeah, they've got like 6 of them.
They just called Weber?
They're called Weber Grill.
Okay.
And so when you walk in, everything is cooked over gigantic Weber kettles that they have in the kitchen. And it's sort of like a backyard upscale steakhouse. And so everything they make there is really good. They use smoke to infuse everything from their bourbon. And it's like over charcoal too, which tastes, grilling over charcoal has a different taste to it.
Absolutely.
And I'm not a guy who overly loves smoky foods, but I love the taste of charcoal, right? Like there's
who was the grill master? Was it you? Were you
no. It took a team of 10 people. Okay. Because
I was thinking like that sounds like a lot of burgers to grill.
And the Red River Valley Fair has a grill that's big enough to fit a whole hog, like on a spit. And so we borrow that grill every year. And so I think we went through like 22 bags of charcoal, like giant bags of charcoal throughout the day while we were cooking these things. And so the burgers are really great. Getting back to my original point before I waylaid myself on burgers.
Wait, I forgot what we were talking about.
I was talking about like 6 months at a time. I wish you could look at people's hours because this week I put in a ton of hours. And so to me, it's like I'm on salary, so it doesn't matter. Right. I'm not clocking in, clocking out, but I do have salaried people who get paid overtime. But in a perfect world, wouldn't it be better if we just salaried those employees and then found a way to like make the balance work? So if there's a week where you're putting in 75 hours, it might not be the next week, but in that 6-month period, it says like, listen, you were supposed to do X number of hours. You did X number of hours plus 28.
Right.
So we're going to, make sure that you take every Friday in July off.
That was something I should have done at the last job. So the next job I get, if it's a salaried position, I think it would just be smart to track my hours on my own in a spreadsheet so that I can at least quantify for myself. Okay, this salary equates to this much per hour, right? And just to at least have that number handy so I can get a better understanding of exactly who's getting the benefit of this whole deal here.
Well, and if a company was smart, it would track hours for everybody to say, listen, gosh, we paid Brent, for 108 hours of overtime this year. We paid Kathy for 100 hours of overtime. And so we should actually hire another employee. It'll actually cost us less to have that other person to help, like balance that out.
As I'm looking at jobs, I'm I'm looking at jobs that are also not multimedia at all. Because
single media jobs.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Only working with VCRs.
Yeah. Or sub-media jobs.
Yeah.
No, it's more like multimedia is what I know how to do. And it's probably the thing that I could probably find the highest paying job to do if I can find one. But it's also my passion. And so if I'm doing it all day for other people, for things I'm not passionate about, I don't have a lot of energy to do it at the end of the day for myself. So there's kind of that. But I think the real metric for me in the next job that I have is, besides obviously what is the pay and what am I doing, is will I hate my life when I wake up in the morning to go to work? Which means I'm not going to do food service and I'm not going to do education. So other stuff maybe. But yeah, I mean, if I find a job doing data entry or something and I'm like, yeah, you know what, pays the bills and I don't absolutely hate it, I get to sit at a computer and listen to music or something, or something else that I find out I'm actually good at and didn't realize I was. So it is I'm at a blank slate era of my late 30s right now, which is nice in its own way.
One of the things I think that you should look at too is like, okay, ask them how they handled the pandemic, right? Like, what did your company do when the shit hit the fan?
Right.
Because I think that's going to be a metric that really tells you what, it's like, listen, here's what we did immediately. We figured out how we could pivot and start working from home for people. We, or it's like, nope, our boss made everybody come into work and we, started a protocol for this, but we also got, hazard pay for this and blah, 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 blah. And I think that shows the merit of a company. And I also don't think, if you go to work for a company that's big enough, find out what they got for PPP money, right?
Absolutely.
And find out what they did to weather the storm, and did it go into the pockets of an executive, or did it actually go into helping the people who were being harmed?
Yeah, I have a close friend who works in higher education and has his whole adult life, and I always assumed he would be a lifer doing that because that was his passion, but higher education is just dying in front of us, right?
Oh,
like
God.
It's like someone hit it like a deer, but it didn't kill the deer yet, and the deer is just slowly dying on the side of the road, and we're all just watching the deer die. And so he's looking at maybe getting out of that, and he's basically looking at federal government jobs where he's like, amazing benefits, amazing pay. He has awesome writing skills, and he could probably become a technical writer of some kind. And it's like, well, maybe I go try to find a job with the federales, doing something, depending on what it is. I really don't know, but luckily I've got an amazing support structure right now that's letting me take a breath. I have a new baby niece, and so I'm going to go visit her here in about a week or so. As I try to figure out, like right now, it really is kind of like, I don't know what to do next necessarily. I don't know what I want to do next. Like, I know there are things that I'm passionate about, but I don't know if I want to pursue work in that. The dream would be just doing this podcast with you. And that was the thing and maybe that happens someday. So I've got more time to start focusing on that for sure.
Are you interested in that, listener? Tell us, we'll take a first round of funding. You could own 50% of this podcast.
There's a large chance that I think my personal passion just gets focused on audio with a little bit of video to supplement it going forward, because isn't it
amazing how video was the future, in the 2000s and the 2010s, and now audio is really jumping up.
They both, when you apply them correctly, they are both incredibly valuable in their own way. So it's I have a deep love for filmmaking and for the montage arts. Really, anything that you're telling a story by montaging moving images together. Filmmaking is at its base, it's two illusions. It's the illusion of motion and it's the illusion of continuity, and you're using montage to do both. And I love that. I think that's really captivating. But most things that get made are so disposable, and no one cares about them. They just have they're ephemeral. They have a very finite thing, and it gets really tough to care about that after the 20th bank commercial that you've worked on. It can really be difficult to talk yourself into, I got to go interview this farmer about this, this machine that he's been using for 20 years.
And I don't doubt that you could get a compelling story out of that, but the problem is that they've put it into a box.
Right. Usually I'm not the one driving the ship.
Yeah.
Usually I am the one who knows how all the buttons work, but some other doofus is driving the ship, and so I'm making their thing. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Before I fell in love with video, I fell in love with audio as a kid, but I fell in love with video shortly thereafter.
Sure.
So basically both at the same time. And so the nice thing with audio is, like, especially for storytelling, like your budget is really microphones and a couple of people to come in and do the voice acting.
It's time is the biggest investment when it comes down to it, right?
Pretty much. I mean, you don't have to worry about continuity of shots and color correction and video effects. I feel so bad for VFX artists these days. The Flash movie is a really big example of that, because the horror stories that are coming out of how these massive studios, Marvel and DC and all these Warner Brothers and Disney and stuff, they just whip these VFX. I don't think they're unionized yet. They're not unionized yet. So they just absolutely abuse these people and burn through them as quickly as they can, because they don't necessarily need the perfect VFX to sell the movie ticket.
Yep.
And so you get substandard stuff. And so we both saw The Flash last weekend. I had a lot of fun watching it. Thinking about it more, my opinions actually lessened over time of it. And when I go back and look at some of those VFX shots, I'm like, yeah, what the fuck? Like, this could have been way better.
Right. And I think that if you look at the Justice League movie, right, and people are like, this is what you came up, this is the mashing together of all of these things. And recently I watched, Demolition Man, right? So Demolition Man is one of the first movies that I watched over and over and over and over and over again as a kid, right? And
Wesley Snipes' best movie.
Oh God, he's so bad in it. He's such a bad baddie. And Sylvester Stallone, Sandy Bullock, Rob Schneider, the three seashells. I don't know what to do with that. One of the things I got from it was so much was done with physical, right? So they had some ability to use CGI, but it was so minimal that's what I think works, right? Is the fact that, like, okay, we'll use this as a tool when we can't build it on our own.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. And it's the incentives are now in the storytelling, especially in superhero movies, is for that. Hey, remember this thing? Hey, remember when this thing happened? And literally in The Flash, we have characters going, I remember the Batmobile. Oh, I remember that thing. And they're supposed to be in awe for us instead of letting us be in awe of it. Plus, we got every Batman shot in the trailer. So you didn't really get new stuff except for some Bruce Wayne scenes.
Did it also bother you that the Batcave was clearly so CG'd versus, like, the last time we were in that Batcave, they built a set for it?
Yeah, so I actually couldn't quite tell because the projection was so dim.
Oh,
I could not see a lot of the action.
Okay, let me gripe about projection.
Please
just for a
do,
moment.
because this is the thing I keep hearing about, and I don't go to the movies that often. And it's been a while, so I was at this one, and I was like, God damn, I can't see Batman punching that guy in the face.
Right. Okay, so when Avatar 2 came out, it came out in the most formats that's ever existed, right? So it's got a 2D format, it's got a 3D format, it's got a 3D laser projection format, it's got a 2D laser projection format, and so all these things. Well, it's a you have to go in and set your projector for what it's doing, right?
Right.
And so not every screening is in 3D, or if it's 3D laser, you need to tell it it's 3D and you're using the laser part, because it can just project with light as a normal projector would. So when I first saw it, I was seeing a 2D laser projection, but it's like there was a film over it. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? I don't understand. And so after about 15 minutes, I went out and complained. I said, there's something wrong with this. I know it is. And they didn't do anything to fix it.
The high school kid is like, I don't what?
Right. And that's the other problem too, is you don't have a projectionist anymore, right? These things are all programmed and run by computers. So there's no art form to it anymore.
You used to have to thread celluloid through a physical machine.
Right. So I found out afterwards that it was supposed to be that they had turned the 3D on, but you didn't have the glasses to activate it. So the film, the lens that does that, that piece was in front of it. And I was in the Twin. This was an IMAX screening in the Twin Cities, and I was pissed about it. And that is the thing, right? So I went and saw the Clerks 3, and it was being beamed out. So like it was being streamed onto the screen, and it was bigger than the screen was. So you were only seeing 2/3 of what was going on. And so I went out and complained, and they said, we don't know what to do. And so I had to watch 20 minutes like that before they got somebody in who knew how to like, okay, I'm going to switch it, because people don't understand, movies don't all come out at the same like size, right? You know? And so that's the thing. And when you were the head projectionist at the Fargo Theater, you had to read and figure it out and go and then make sure that the right lens was on and the right positioning was there. Otherwise, it's going to be a shitty experience.
Yeah, I literally had to build the film up from separate reels. And so I even had to make sure, and then often I'd have to watch it then that night to make sure I put it in the right order, because you couldn't just easily fast forward and rewind through things. You could only play it one way and then it would go in the uptake reel and be ready to go again.
I did that. And side note, people used to do a really shitty thing. Like if you were at a theater that didn't care anymore, or you were an asshole, like 90-year-old projectionist, you'd put reels out of order. Did you ever have a reel that was out of order?
Not one that I had built when it played.
Okay, so I was screening Rear Window for a Fargo Theater Classic series, and something in my gut said, you should watch this before it plays tonight. And so I'm watching it, and I don't remember who built it up, but I'm watching it, and all of a sudden it skips to the end. And then like it's like the last 7 minutes, and then the credits, and then it skips back. And I'm like, so clearly in the middle of this. Now, splicing something in the middle is, oh God. And it was like, you've got 7 hours before, you know, the theater is packed with people to see an Alfred
Good for you
Hitchcock
for catching
classic.
it though, yeah.
Right, because how many times did people build something up and didn't catch it?
Yep. And I mean...
And everyone who watched Fight Club all of a sudden thinks that they're an expert when it comes to movies, because they know about the cigarette burn. And
sometimes that would probably happen because whoever broke down the film last mislabeled it. And so if you're in a rush, like you don't actually have time to screen it, you can only go off of the labeling. You're like, I sure hope the projectionist at the last theater who used this didn't just fuck me, because that otherwise I'm going to get in a lot of trouble.
Did you see Across the Spider-Verse?
Not yet.
Okay.
The sequel?
No,
The first one.
Is the first one Across the Spider? No. That's
Enter the Spider.
Yeah, the first one is Enter the Spider-Verse.
I've seen the first one. I have not seen the sequel.
Okay, so the sequel comes out. I'm super stoked because I loved the first one. I thought it was great. The second one, oh my God, it's amazing. And speaking of visual effects artists, the story coming out this weekend has been like, this movie will not be ready for a March release, because we weren't making both of them at the same time. We were finishing this one and starting on the next one. There's just no way we'll have it ready in a year. And more power to them. If it takes you 2 years to put out the sequel to that, I'm fine, because it was awesome.
Did you know that there's multiple edits out in theaters right now?
Okay, so that's what I want to talk about here, right?
That's kind of fucking crazy to me.
The first time I'm sitting there, like, it is so, the volume is so low, I can't hear what's going on. And so I went and I told an usher, I'm like, the volume is really low. And they're like, well, it's set to the right volume setting. They had, that first weekend, they had sent out a ton of these things where the sound mix wasn't right. And so I think it was like Nick Miller said, go and tell the people to boost it from 7.0 to 7.5. And I said it was okay. He put that out like in a tweet, right? And so
I said it was, you have my permission.
Okay. Now, what's amazing is because you're getting all of that stuff, like they can update the hard drive that is playing that movie. And so what they did is they sent a patch like on Wednesday that fixed the sound mix and everything like that. And that is nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, if that's what it was, tough. There's nothing we can do. We're not going to reprint a million feet of celluloid.
Imagine if Cats had been made in 1995.
Right. And so
like those buttholes are still going to be in there.
No matter what.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize this, but even after a movie comes out, that's why I like to see stuff as soon as possible, because they continue to tweak on these movies, and it's very hush hush, right? Like they try and keep these things under wraps. The cat butthole incident from the movie Cats, I think, is the most widespread one, that if you didn't go see it, and theaters were smart because they said, hey, at midnight tonight, we're updating. So
This
if
is
you
the
want to see the
butthole
butthole cut, now's when you got to come out and check it out. We're going to take Jason Derulo's package and we're going to tuck it a little bit more.
If I title this episode "The Butthole Cut," do you think like we get delisted or something?
No, in fact, I bet you our listens go through the roof.
You know, I might call it the beehole cut just to be careful, just because, like, yes, you know, so our podcast isn't just on the RSS feed. It also goes to our YouTube channel. The other day, we got out of the gate 655 views on it, which we normally don't get that many with the first day. And so the algorithm decided we're going to share this one for some reason. And I could totally see the butthole cut not getting shared on YouTube. You know, I mean, people
They're
are
like, we're not going to push this one
people
through.
are bleeping out sounds of words so that the algorithm doesn't catch it and like demonetize their video. You know, kind of a thing. So like if you're watching like what television is now is really Instagram or Facebook, because it's just scroll, new things, scroll. I hate the fact that I get so caught up in it. And yeah, I mean, they just people will self-censor even words like sex. Like they'll just self-censor the E and it'll be bleeped out just because they're afraid the algorithm might not share it with enough people.
Sure.
So like the gamifying of the algorithms is deciding the content, which I guess has always been kind of part of how media works. You know, TV, you have to make in commercial breaks and there were censorship issues and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't always feel that great when I'm going through all this disposable ephemeral media anymore. And as someone who loves to make media, I go, what should I be doing? What should I be making? I don't want to be making things that are disposable. I that's one thing I like about our podcast is it doesn't feel disposable to me.
Yeah.
Right. Like even though we get together, we talk, I do a little bit of editing, if any, and it goes out, but it doesn't feel disposable in any way, shape, or form to me.
This is raw, folks. This is happening.
If you can't take us at our JJ Meets World, then you don't fucking deserve us at our JJ Meets World.
What do you think
that guy looks like an Anthony Hopkins who's really hit some hard times.
Oh yeah. Oh dude, that dude has been in media in Fargo. We're recording this and looking into another studio. He's been in media Fargo for so long. He's a dude. He's a major dude. What do you think the NAEA thinks about their emoji being used as a symbol for a penis? Now, of course, I'm talking about the North American Eggplant Association.
Oh, yeah. I think they're all for it. I mean,
they're like, yes, we broke through.
Ever since eggplants became cocks on social media, I bet eggplant sales have been going through the fucking roof.
Did you ever watch House of Cards?
No,
I
was thinking Coneheads. But
Coneheads. I was like, because there's a whole episode.
Oh yes, I watched the first 2 seasons.
Okay,
of House of Cards.
I think it's in the first season where Frank has to go back to his district because they've got the peach growers have made a giant water tower that has like a peach painted on it, and there's a tragic accident that takes place, and they're comparing what a peach is, and like I'm like, yeah, it's to the point now where if you put a peach emoji in a conversation, you have to specify, I'm talking about the stone fruit.
Yep, not the butt.
Not the butt.
Yeah,
not the bee.
Not the bee. You put a taco in there, oh, you're fucked.
Oh, yeah. Like, you're getting fired.
Yeah, unless you're married, then you can be like, hey, Jill, I want to eggplant that taco tonight.
And she goes, eggplant tacos sound disgusting. Be like... And then like I just what interests me is you just need one like mega celebrity to use an emoji to represent something else, because I've also noticed that too, right? So you've talked about the censoring of words.
Yeah.
I noticed they also are throwing like emojis up there because that's a harder thing to.
Yeah, we are getting closer and closer to idiocracy every single day.
So much.
where the language
go away, Baton.
It's just evolving into too lazy image, but I can't complain because I use animated GIFs all the time when I tell Mike Resl I want to have lunch.
Yeah.
But I guess how many ways can you say I want to have lunch in text?
I also find that I think it's much funnier to send someone, like if someone says, oh, I had a bad day today, and then you send the one of Rob Hubel throwing like glitter into the air and being like, feel better. Like that says so much more than just me being like, buck her up.
Yep. I once asked a girl out with an animated GIF and it worked. She liked it. We dated for a little bit. This was a few years ago.
What was may I ask what the GIF was?
How did I know this? I knew that she liked, she liked Game of Thrones.
Okay.
And it was a GIF of Tyrion saying, have a drink with me. And so I sent that to her on Facebook. We had been chatting, and then I had sent that on Facebook Messenger, and she's like, yes. And she didn't respond with an animated GIF, but she understood what I was doing and what I was putting out there.
Nice.
She was picking up what I was putting down. So she was cool. I mean, you got to be cool if you're down with animated GIFs on an asking out of a date.
Right. I mean, it is almost like getting the first date out of the way, because now you know a little bit about who I am, my communication style,
Sense of humor.
Yeah.
You know, are you an uptight asshole? Are you an uptight eggplant?
Bingo.
You know, or are you a loose peach? I don't know.
A loose peach.
Yeah, that doesn't fit at all. Actually,
no, we're using that now. It's loose peach. That's gonna be the sign off on episodes now.
I blame my dream for all this butthole talk we've been having.
Okay, we're closing in on like when we normally end an episode,
Sure.
But this one might go a little bit longer because
I'm down.
I want to talk.
I don't have a job to go to. I don't have a dog that I'm sitting anymore to take care of.
You're like, yeah, I need to do, what is it, in Biddy Schramm in A League of Their Own, when she's asking Tom Hanks if her son can come with on road trips. She's like, my husband says he's too busy reading the want ads, and I should just be quiet and take my son with me. So can I? And he goes, what? And he goes, can I take my son on road trips? And then Tom Hanks looks out at the field and his eyes kind of glaze over and he spits and goes, ball players. And if you want a master class in acting, Tom Hanks in A League of Their Own is perfect.
Yeah.
So good. Okay, so when this episode comes out, it is the Monday before the release of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Yeah. Indiana Jones and the death of the franchise.
Right, bingo.
Or the final death of the franchise.
Indiana Jones.
It has died many
nail
deaths.
in the coffin. So there's a couple things I want to comment on real quick. That first of all, I love Indiana Jones, and I've loved. Nodak used to be a place where you would buy televisions and appliances and stuff like that. And when I was 8 years old, like right after Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade had come out on videotape, they sent VHS cassettes out to all the stores, and you'd play it and it would be on all of the TVs, right? And it's the scene in the blimp where, he puts on the waiter's outfit, he's, just punches the guy, no ticket. And then when they have to turn the blimp around, and then they get in the little tiny prop plane and they're flying away. And it's maybe like a 6-minute sequence. And then it ends and starts again. So it was probably just looped over and over and over on this videotape, right? That year for my birthday, I asked to go watch the TVs. Like, I wanted to go and stare at the TVs playing this thing
at
Nodak, because I didn't know it was possible to rent or own that on tape yet.
Okay.
And maybe it wasn't. Maybe that was the thing, is it wasn't available yet.
So it had the early rental release first.
Yeah. I was enamored with it. I've always loved Indiana Jones. And what's kind of
I'm sorry, was this Last Crusade or Raiders?
Last Crusade.
Okay.
So Last Crusade is my favorite.
Okay.
I think that there's nothing wrong with that movie whatsoever. Every moment of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is perfect. And unfortunately, it's also the reason why Kingdom of the Crystal Skull sucked so bad, is they said, it's fun to see Indy as a son. What if we made Indy the dad?
Yeah.
And so they're like, we'll just, it's still a milkshake, but we're going to serve it to you in a dirty old ashtray. I think the thing that
we market tested this,
right,
and the executives really thought that this could at least make $1 billion.
Shia LaBeouf is the next Tom Cruise. We're lucky to have him. So here's what I think I like the most about the Indiana Jones franchise is it's straight up pulp adventure, right? So there's a clear goal in each movie, and it just spoon feeds it to you. And you root for Indiana Jones because he's this gruff and tumble guy, but he's also human. He bleeds a lot in these movies.
Harrison
right?
Ford's pretty clumsy in general, too.
Right, just in general.
He looks clumsy.
And, when he's got the whip, which is, we hadn't seen that in a long time, as a weapon. He's also a teacher. And if you watch Raiders, that's a huge part of the beginning is the girl's got the I love you written on her eyelids. But it's this essentially like ultra nerd, right?
Yeah.
So he's way into archaeology and all of these aspects of the past, and he's got a firm belief that things belong in a museum so that other nerds can see them and, you know, understand what's going on. And then he's also a guy who he's a character who has a deep faith, but his faith isn't what drives his character. Right. Like it's just, I find it to be fascinating. And then, did you ever watch the Adventures of the Young Indiana Jones?
I've seen little clips, but no, I didn't really stick through it at all.
It is a worthwhile. It's too bad the series came out when it did, because they want to do a lot more with it. There's an episode that's awesome that uses early CG to, like, it's a stained glass figure that comes to life. That's really neat. I haven't played through the Indiana Jones video games, but I'm told that there are a couple good PC games that came out.
Really?
Now, if you play the original Nintendo one for Temple of Doom and you try and play the minecarts, good luck, because it's Battletoads level difficult.
Minecart levels suck. Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah, right? Like, let's just give up on the minecarts, everyone. We don't need them.
Yeah, no underwater levels, please. No minecart levels, please.
Right, bingo.
Thank you.
And as I get older and you start taking in some of the Easter eggs that they've built in there, like at the beginning of Temple of Doom, when Kate Capshaw sings the Broadway musical, but it's in what is it? It's in Chinese.
Okay.
And so it's I can't remember what the song is, but it's a great like it opens with a Bugsy Berkeley like musical number, which is great. And then you find out that the name of the club, like if you look at it, is Club Obi-Wan.
Oh,
right?
really?
Like, yeah, it's this call out to George Lucas, and they're just fun. They're fun movies. I was so disappointed in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I watched it for the second time ever last week. I saw it in theaters, and then I watched it again just so that I could be fully prepped and ready to go for Dial of Destiny. And I've heard bad things. I haven't read reviews, but I've read some headlines. I will wait to see it on my own. The thing that really has me worked up about this is that it's the last score of John Williams.
Did he die? And I'm not remembering.
He's retired. He said Dial of Destiny is my last movie. I'm retiring. And recently he walked that back at the premiere and he goes, if you do an Indy 6, I'll be there. But Harrison Ford's been very vocal about, like, I'm done with this character. I wonder if they're going to kill him off in this. I can't imagine that they will. I think the fans would revolt after that. But
I mean, I don't know. Like, I think one of the things, and I know I'm not the only person, I know this is, I think, being deeply felt by audiences and movie lovers is, you know, I do love a good franchise and I do love good popcorn fare, and I have no problem with fan service, but you go back and you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, or you go watch Batman 89,
which I just did recently as well,
which is my favorite superhero movie of all time. These are movies that have a soul to them and a character to them where, because it's the first one, they're just trying to make a good movie and tell a good story. Versus, it has to be a good superhero story, Batman story, right? The Star Wars movies, when they first made them, they could just be this new thing, and we're going to try to tell the story. Every Star Wars movie since then has the weight of all the expectations and the need for fan service, and they're filled with what I call R2-D2 moments now, which is in The Phantom Menace. R2-D2 arrives and he like saves the ship they're on or whatever, and they bring him in to meet the Queen. And she goes, what is the name of this droid? And the guy goes, it is R2-D2. And he says it in such a way the audience is supposed to go, yay, right? Those moments, the Flash movie is mostly moments like that. It's mostly R2-D2 moments. Like, remember this thing? Remember that thing? To the point that they actually have characters in the movie, like pointing it out for you themselves. And it does not capture the soul or the magic of it in any way. You go back and you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it's been years since I've seen Last Crusade, so I'm gonna have to watch that again. But I'm sure it's similar in that scenes breathe, like that scene at the beginning of Raiders where he's teaching the class. So just think about how that's shot and edited. They would never shoot and edit it that way now. They'd be like, nope, we need more cuts. We need this, we need that, we need a joke. The car race scene needs to be 20 times longer. Shia LaBeouf needs to be swinging from fucking trees. And there is no sense of even having a soul and telling a story and doing that thing first. One of the exceptions for me is Avengers Endgame, because they keep pointing out, like, they keep referencing things throughout the series, but it serves a purpose. It completes the story. It ties it up at the very end. And they do it so deftly. Like, even when Black Panther says, Clint, toss it to me, which is a callback to him and Hawkeye meeting in Civil War, and Hawkeye saying, my name's Clint. He says, I don't care, right? That's a full story right there. They told the beginning of the story. They ended the story. Right? It had a purpose, and it showed these guys were enemies and now they are together. It did something that mattered and meant it was a payoff that you were building up over time. The Flash is just a bunch of, hey, remember when Christopher Reeves was Superman? Spoiler alert. When Christopher Reeves was Superman, hey, did you ever hear about Nick Cage and that guy wanted to make a spider thing? Isn't that funny? It also shows you that they only really have Superman and Batman stuff to draw upon for most of that old shit. Right. And so it doesn't land. And, you know, Tim Burton, when he told a Batman story, he approached it like a monster movie, right? So the way Batman arrives at the beginning of the first Batman movie, where he's like this horror from the night and he's spreading his wings and they shoot him and he doesn't die. He makes it like a horror film, like it's a creature from the Black Lagoon coming out. And now it's just, well, you know, Batman's got to say the I'm Batman again, and he's got to say these old lines. And while Michael Keaton is a joy to watch, and I'll watch him in anything, and I would love to see another Batman film with him. I would really hope that they would go, let's tell a new story. Let's stop worrying about, oh, we got to tie it into all these other things. You don't have to do that at all. That is a cheap shortcut to trying to get a little dopamine effect in the audience, and we're getting it all the time now, so that drug is having less and less and less of an effect. I never thought I'd say this. I'm getting sick of superhero movies.
Oh yeah,
I never thought I would say that.
I am.
I think I've said this on the podcast before. If I went back and told 7-year-old me, hey buddy, guess what? In the year 2023, there's going to be a new Michael Keaton Batman movie and a Barbie movie, and you're going to be more excited for the Barbie movie, I'd be like,
yep.
I'd be like, you're not me. You are clearly someone pretending to be me, because that could never possibly be true. But the early buzz in the Barbie movie is we're seeing something new. Like when Margot Robbie and Gosling and whomever else read it, like in their interviews, they're saying, I read the script. I'd never read a script like it. And I thought, there's no way they're going to make this movie. It's too different than what we've seen before. That has me excited beyond belief. I was excited to go into The Flash. I had some fun watching it, but I don't know if I'll ever watch it again.
No, that's the way I felt when I left. Is like, I had an interesting experience watching this thing, but do I need to watch it again? I don't need to watch Bruce Wayne, you know, in flip-flops making spaghetti. Nope. I saw it. It's done.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
But I also think that there's such juggernauts and people go to movies and you know, give them money.
That
and
pressure of the money is on the line. So the incentives are there for people who are non-storytellers to move in a different direction.
Bingo. And I think I'm interested in seeing, because I liked Logan, James Mangold's other like foray into the superhero world. So maybe Indiana Jones will mean something different.
But did he direct this one?
He directed this one, yeah. So Spielberg. In fact, Spielberg saw the first screening of it and he goes, I thought I was the only one who could direct one of these. And I wanted to be like, Steven, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was awful.
Yeah, you can't anymore.
Yeah, like you're done. And in fact, one of the things I thought was so interesting is Spielberg used to be on site for everything, and one of the things that gave his movies such a cool look, right? So he filmed Jaws at Martha's Vineyard, right? The Jurassic Park movies were down in Hawaii because it looked like it was an island setting. Yep. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull clearly was in a couple of sound stages, and so like you didn't go anywhere for these things.
And it was probably directed mostly by his assistant directors.
Bingo, right?
Yep. That movie was so bad, nuked the fridge became a catchphrase for how bad a movie is. It's like jumping the shark. Well, that movie really nuked the fridge.
Do you remember in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back where it's Gus Van Sant and he's directing Good Will Hunting 2?
Fucking brilliant. Jesus, Ben, I said I'm busy.
Yeah.
He's counting money.
He's counting money. And they're like, can we get an action, Gus? He goes, Jesus, Ben, I said I'm busy.
See, now that's great because they are deeply making fun of themselves versus just going, hey, remember this thing? I also love Affleck and Damon in that scene. I will watch Affleck or Damon in anything. I really, really will. I really love them as performers. I'm getting really excited for Air. Or is it Air Jordan? Or just Air?
It's Air.
Air.
Yeah.
Getting really excited for Air.
It's great. I loved it.
Okay. I haven't seen it yet. I got to see it. I don't catch the movies much these days, but I need to because, my God, do I need some... I never thought I'd say this. I need some non-superhero stories. I need something that doesn't have a million VFX shots in it.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Something that doesn't have a Hans Zimmer score, please.
Right. Show me something where the clothing is not CG on it. Like, let me just enjoy that for a hot second. But I can't wait to see Dial of Destiny, but I'm also nervous. I feel like I'm meeting my biological father for the first time, and like there's only two outcomes. It's good or bad. There's no in between.
Yeah, there's no going back.
You know,
we're not going to be able to repair this over time.
Yeah, right.
Did you know that you can get like a free ticket at Applebee's right now?
Okay, I actually took a picture of that. It's on my phone right now. You spend $35 at Applebee's, Fandango is going to give you a free ticket. You know, the last time they did that promotion
was that Top Gun?
Top Gun Maverick,
yep.
Which turned out to be a lot of fun and a juggernaut movie. Is this an indicator that Applebee's has their finger on the pulse of what the people want? Only time will tell.
I wonder if it's like, well, I would assume if I'm JP Appleby, I'm sitting at the top of my Applebee's empire, and James Mangold was like, "Can you please give away tickets to our movies?" I'd be like, "Show me the movie first."
You know what's funny is in The Flash, there's an Applebee's reference in this, like in the pseudo world that they're in, like, and they call it like it's like Ant Oranges or something. Like it's the neighborhood. It's the neighborhood grill. It's like it's a throwaway joke about all the things that are different, right? Like all the things that are like different now.
Got it.
And it's such a throwaway joke that I was like, oh, even Applebee's didn't want to get behind this one. Like Applebee's didn't want to do the thing for Applebee's, so.
Banana Flies.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is.
The last two trips I've had at Banana Flies, I've been hitting the 3 cheese chicken penne pretty hard.
Oh,
I don't know why that's been the thing that I've been like, I need to get the 3 cheese chicken penne. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's the carbs.
Maybe you just love penne. Maybe you're in a penne mood right now.
That's my noodle. I mean, penne is my noodle.
Really?
If I can do penne, if that's an option on the menu for my noodle, that's the one I'm doing. Even with Cincinnati chili. I love cooking Cincinnati chili and putting on some really well cooked penne. Hell yeah! I mean, it's a great. It'll hold a lot of the sauce inside the tube, which is really so it becomes like little flavor bombs.
I recently figured out that bow tie is my pasta of the summer because I think I'm better than most people, and so if they had Top Hat noodles, I'd eat Top Hat.
My only worry about bow tie is it goes in a lot of cold pasta salads, and I hate that shit. Like, get that fucking shit away from me.
Pasta's hot. Tucker likes his pasta hot.
Yeah, and if there's a caper in there, I want you to walk into traffic.
Oh man,
fuck capers.
Really? Even with like a lemon sauce going on a piece of fish or something?
No. It looks like rabbit poop.
Yeah, that's why I like it.
Ugh, no, thank you.
I like to eat things that are poop shaped. That's why I love candy bars so much.
That's why you're a real Snickers guy.
That's why I love me a Snickers.
What was the one in Caddyshack? Is it a baby? No, it's a Baby Ruth. It's a Baby Ruth.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. No big deal. Takes a bite out of it.
Yes.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information.
Okay, I lied. There's a lot of CG in this episode. In fact, most of it is just AI. We just put into ChatGPT, make a fake episode of JJ Meets World, And that's not entirely what you listen to, but part of it is, because I can't say the word and anymore.